Well, you're missing one today.
Yeah.
Yes. We're up in Akron having a good time.
No decision.
Hey, Speedy.
Well, Jeff, you're just under the wire. What do you?
You wanna come back in and say no decision?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We're back in a regular session. No decisions were made in the executive session.
All right, so get the financial report together for the period December through May. Not sure how many there are. So we're very nearly full for the month if you look at the census. 29.2 out of 30. We had so many residents, our revenue was at 191,000. The downside is because we have more residents, we need to have an extra CNA on each shift to take care of them. We don't have our own staff to do that. And so most of the overage is from having agency staff come in, so it's expensive. We've got ads out right now for CNAs. It's in the paper last week and this week. So we hope to get a few, and we've got a lot of nurses have turned up to want to work on an as-needed basis. So we're getting them worked into our system. We shouldn't need to have many nurses through agency, CNAs will say, So departments as usual had a margin, and so for the 6-month period, December through May, we come up with a combined operating units figure of minus 78,689. So that's the amount we're requesting to balance and to reconcile our account for the 6-month period.
What was December's total?
Well, December.
Well, the 3 month before that. What did we pay at the end of the last?
I don't remember offhand.
It was less, or it was more than this.
Yes, it was. I think it was about double. It was about double
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think it was more like 120,000, but don't quote me on that.
Well, that's the reason I can ask, because I think it was too. So how does this actually work? We write Good Samaritan a check for $78,689
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to cover operating expenses for
And that, then we reimburse Good Samaritan for, the debt that was incurred to cover the 78,000 through the 6-month period.
So what do we pay Good Sam to manage the facility?
Well, you pay, there's a shortfall, whatever the shortfall is.
$78,000.
For December
6
through
months.
May. But that's not, that's not profit, that's just balancing the expenses that Good Sam
If you
put
want
out.
more information on that, I mean, I would go to Scott. He has the prior contracts that we've entered. This contract for the last year is drafted differently than I believe the contract for
But
the
we
prior
surely
years.
pay him an amount. And
I would just encourage you to look at the contract that we signed. We pay them an amount at the end of December before the first of the year, and an amount at the end. And then beyond that, we also have the budgeted funds that we offer to actually operate the facility.
The 6 mills.
Right. Does that make sense?
Which presumably, this payment comes out of the 6 mills to help cover the operating expenses. And if it's not all spent, then that money on the unspent portion of the 6 mills carries over to wherever.
That was fully funded for this year. So there should be adequate funds in his account to take care of that.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess I didn't pay enough attention over the years. We're the building committee, I guess I call them a building committee, or the ones working on the building, the remodeling and the renovation and the new facility.
Yeah.
They
That's
get,
separate.
they get so much.
They get 6
Yeah,
mills.
they'll get 6 mills starting next year.
Starting next year, they've been getting it for 5 years.
No. That's, the contract with Good Samaritan requires 6 mills.
Yes.
Okay. That's under a contract.
But we've been paying 6 mills in for how many years?
And that's a whole separate, since
That-
12.
There's two, as far as I understand, there's 2 tranches of 6 mills.
There
One
is.
is
What's
taxes
been
levy.
left over in this one for the GSV, I think got transferred
Okay.
to the building commission, if I'm not
What
wrong.
I don't understand is, I went to that meeting, it's been a month ago. And I think there's $600,000 in that account.
Was.
Yeah. Now, are we gonna keep giving them that 200,000 a year? Or is that 200,000 gonna start going towards
I
the
think
five, or
it's
the
204.
bond?
It's a 6 mills, it's 240 some thousand.
240 some thousand.
Yeah, they'll be getting that every year, starting.
What are they gonna do with it?
Because all that is going into the fund to help pay for the cost.
To finance it.
To finance it,
It's just like taking a loan out from a bank.
right.
They took loans out for the building. The 6 mills are basically, you can call them installment payments
Right,
for the next 30 years.
So it is gonna pay off that bond.
Yes.
yes.
But they've used the money that was supposed to pay off the bond. They're putting that money in the initial, it was 5 million to build that, correct?
Yeah, 5.
That's more.
Now it's up to
more than
like
that.
6.8 million because they're putting 700,000 in that I thought was gonna go to pay off the bond. But they've thrown that 700,000 on top of it.
I'm not following you.
I'm not even.
Well, they added, initially, the amount was 5 million, as far as I understand it.
5.2.
And they got the USDA, yeah, the plus .2 was contributed by the county. Well, then they got these tax credits set up, and so there's another 100,000, if they get those sold, and another 200,000. So it's $1 million plus 200,000. There's a big federal tax credit, and then another 200,000 state tax credit. And so that's how the total figure went up, because they got additional financing.
Right. But
Right.
there was a bunch of money that went in there that I thought was gonna go pay the 5 off the bond. And they're spending that on top of it.
Yeah, I don't know how they worked that out.
I wish I had to figure.
I'm not understanding what
Well,
you're saying
what
at
was
all.
transferred last year at
Yeah.
oil and gas and stuff,
Right,
they've been spending that on architect fees.
right, but I mean, that's part of, I feel like we're saying the same thing but using different language. I mean, that's part of what the bond was approved for, so all that money is coming in and being spent on what was approved by the voters. Because keep in mind, one problem we did have on the front end of all this is we weren't actually collecting that money.
Yes.
From the
there's where-
taxpayers. I mean, there
There's where
was
the
a-
confusion comes in.
Yes.
Because it was like 2 years, correct, that
Correct.
there was no tax money coming into that fund.
And then we
So we
started
started out in a
collecting,
hole.
yep, and then we started collecting
I
taxes, but
wish I had
we
that
weren't,
paperwork.
we weren't doing a good job of actually making sure the taxes were being put into clearly identified funds, so the money were supposed to be going to where it was supposed to be going. And so The fund where all the taxes that were being collected on the bond vote weren't showing up in that account because either one, we hadn't been collecting them, or two, they were going into general and weren't being set aside for that fund.
But
I
I
hope I
think-
am saying all this
Well,
right.
I think what
but-
Rogers is trying to.
But they got that 600,000 that we've been collecting the last few years.
Right.
And they have applied that on top of the 5 million. They didn't apply it towards the 5 million, they've added it to the 5 million.
I don't think you're right on that.
Well, they're paying the
I can
pre-construction
show you the
expenses.
paperwork.
Pre-construction expenses are coming out of that money that the county collected
But that's
For-
part of what we're actually talking about.
for
That's what
architects'
it's
fees.
designated.
And here's the thing, if
fee.
you do have, and I understand this is, the financial structure for this is very confusing. Go to a PBC meeting and bring it up.
I did,
Okay,
and that's where I got my information.
that it's 500,000 on top?
Yes,
I'm not tracking, sorry.
Did you take anything away from the meeting with you?
yeah, I think I've got it at home somewhere if I can find it.
I'll look it over with you if you don't mind. I wasn't at the meeting, but
There's they're gonna get 5 million in bonds. Then they're gonna get tax credits of 900,000.
okay, they had applied for a
And then
tax
there's-
credit of 900,000.
And then there's a $200,000 tax
200
credit.
tax credit previously
And then on
approved.
top of that, there is $600,000 that the county put in. And it's a 200,000 a year for 3 years.
I think that what you're talking about is that was a transfer on the front end to bring the account up to balance for our prior failure to ensure that we were actually properly funding what was voted on by the public. Because we did add that money, but it was because it wasn't there
So
already.
that money is for the bond.
Right,
or- So that can be spent on construction.
correct.
But the new 6 mills, that's just to run the facility, or is it to
No.
help build it?
It's to help build it.
It's
Plus, to pay it off
Strictly
in
for
the
the
future.
bond.
Right.
Plus to make payments on it
Right.
annually.
Which is why we have that whole financing structure that when John Grace and his people came and discussed that to you, to try to get the most bang out of the buck for the bond money by taking advantage of,
Tax
that
credits.
federal structure with the tax credits.
And
So, anyway, back to this. So we need to make a motion and approve a payment to Good Samaritan Society for $78,689 to cover operating expenses from January to
December through May,
December.
6 months.
I so move.
all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. There's the invoice for Scott for that amount. So Scott, let me know when the check is ready and I'll pick it up and.
Do you need it before the next meeting?
No, just before the end of the month.
Yeah, we need to have it taken care of into our accounts by the end of the month. So it's all taking place in June.
Okay.
I've got another sheet if you're interested. So if you start looking at the records, you'll see initially there was a reconciliation every month. That was the initial agreement. And that didn't make sense because one month we'd owe you, the next month the county would owe us. So then it went to an annual reconciliation, and after that, both sides were agreed to it every 6 months, semi-annual reconciliations, and that's where we're at now.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Anything else for me? Sorry I can't answer all your questions, but it's confusing.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thanks, everybody.
Okay, do we have any more business in front of the board today? Make a motion for adjournment?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. And